It's time now for the second panel, Mentoring in Practice. Our panelists, Mr. Ahmed Janahi, Head of Partnerships and Market Engagement, Tamkeen, Ms. Elham Hasan, Business Strategy Advisor, Ms. Jumana AbuHannoud, Managing Director, SOS Children's Villages International Gulf Area Office, and Ms. Zainab Kufaishi, Head of Institutional Business Middle East and Africa, Invesco, and our moderator, Mr. Mohamed, Matar, General Manager, EMIC Training.
I don't personally believe that there is a right way or approach when establishing a mentorship program, either internally or externally. And I don't believe that there is one size that fits all. And that's why we are joined today with the panelists we have from the region. Without any further ado, allow me to introduce them, please. So we have Elham Hasan. Elham is an experienced businesswoman with a track record in several fields, including mentoring. Elham sits in several financial institution boards and had led teams in major tasks in the MENA region. We are joined as well, all the way from the United Arab Emirates, by Jumana AbuHannoud. Jumana is the founding partner and board member of REACH. Throughout her 20 years of professional experience, Jumana served in governments, the United Nations, international NGOs, and the private sector. Jumana dedicated her career to helping others in need. In fact, she was the winner of the 2017 Humanitarian Woman of the Year and Emirates Woman of the Year awards. We are joined as well with Zainab Kufaishi. Zainab is heading the institutional business in the Middle East and Africa for Invesco Asset Management, based in Dubai as well. Zainab is also on the executive committee of the Invesco Women's Network and the mentoring subscreen, incepting the first mentoring program 4 years ago. Last but not least, we are joined with Ahmed Hasan Janahi from Labour Fund Bahrain Tamkeen. Ahmed is a trainer, speaker, and entrepreneur. Currently, Ahmed is leading the Partnership and Market Engagement Department at Tamkeen, and Ahmed has hands-on experience on the Tamkeen Mentorship Program. You will all be given an opportunity to participate in our discussion in our Q&A section. Building from the previous panel discussion, where chief executives and C-suite level executives shared their views, thoughts, and mainly challenges when it comes to mentorship. We'd like to hear from Elham on her views of the challenges organizations face when establishing an in-house mentoring program.
Well, good morning all, and I'm so pleased to be here. Seeing so many faces that I recognize and I actually had interacted with, even within a mentoring situation, and sharing a very, seems to be, thoughtful panel. The challenges I feel, I'm not sure about the level of the voice, I feel I'm screaming, is it okay?
Can we hear it now?
Okay.
Yeah.
I have narrowed my points to two. One of them is finding the true mentors, and I meant to say true, because there could be so many, but there can be only few true mentors. And I mean by the word true is that the mentor should be knowledgeable, should be trusted person, because the mentee will share so many of, I would say, personal plans and personal details. So the mentor should be trusted, and a keen mentor. Certain people take the initiative, but they are not keen to contribute. I think finding the true mentor, it's one of the challenges that we face. We have to make sure the mentors take it as not a job. Mentoring is an art. You can be a true mentor if you are that type of a person. It's not a job description that you have to go through. So this is one of the challenges I feel we face. The second challenge is, and I feel, it's filling the gaps. When you mentor people, you bring out the soul in them. You bring out the maximum achievements that they want to work to. You put them in their out of comfort zone. If you will mentor people and don't deliver on those things, you created a huge gap that will have backfire in the progression of people. That's the two challenges I feel.
Thank you, Elham. Having done that at Invesco, Zainab, for the last 4 years, what are the key challenges you came across?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here and to be part of such an important initiative, and well done, Bahrain, for being the first to organize something like this. As you said in the outset, I organized the first Invesco Women's mentoring stream about 4 years ago. And I think some of the challenges that we've encountered are probably around 3 points. First of all, and this applies to organizations generally, financial services in particular, where I work in asset management, suffers from a lack of female diversity, especially at the top. And so I think without a lack, or without some dedication from the top leadership about female parity at the top, any mentorship program will just be a box-ticking exercise. And so we're lucky at Invesco to have sort of within our leaders' KPIs and objectives, some real numbers around sort of female parity at middle management and above. So there is sponsorship certainly from top management around this, but that can be a challenge for other organizations. Particularly for Invesco, what we found is I think, the people that run the mentoring committee are volunteers, essentially. We all have day jobs to do. I agree that it shouldn't be left to the HR departments because it needs to be sort of organized by senior leaders around the business, but I think it does add to our workload. Because we are doing it on a voluntary basis, and we want to make it a success because we are sort of essentially incepting it. The other challenge that we found was that it is a female-only mentoring program because of the issues I've mentioned. And so we've really tried to make sure that this is a female mentor to female mentee program. It's a chicken and egg slightly because there aren't enough female leaders around the organization. So the pool of female mentors is just a little bit limited, and that means that we're a little bit constrained by the size of the program. We're sort of trying to expand it to include male mentors next year, just to expand the pool, and again, like Dr. Khalid spoke about sponsorship, to allow that element to follow through. But yeah, these are some of the challenges that we found.
Thank you. We have all seen the REACH logo and the marketing kit and on the venue this morning, and we are privileged to have a co-founder and board member of REACH with us today. So Jumana, can you just tell us what are the key challenges REACH faced, especially it is targeting the external market with awareness, with matching mentees to mentors. So how did you go about that?
Thank you. I would like to first mention that I'm just the first one from REACH to sit on the panel this morning, but I would like to greet my accomplice, co-founder, board member, Rasha Al-Khawaja, who is speaking later in the afternoon. And also I'm very privileged that Mrs. Rana Ghandour Salhab, who you saw in the morning, is not only a REACH advisor, but she's my mentor. And she's my mentor in REACH, and she's the best success story that I will be talking about today. I think that the challenges that REACHs face are different in terms of we are there to help mentors, mentees, and organizations with their challenges. And this is a real privilege that REACH has. Of course, like any nonprofit organization, starting out with a new concept, because we were the first organization to develop structured mentoring for professional women. So this is more than one niche in one sentence, being the first nonprofit in the DIFC. and hearing everyone speaking in the morning about their personal experiences and their views on internal versus external mentoring, why women, not men, and all of that. These are some of the challenges that we have weathered in the past 6 years, and I believe as an organization, something that we continue to work on is sustainability of our resources so that we can continue to provide high quality and be able to measure that quality. So this is something that we strive for. And as well to really address all of the discussion points around mentoring and raise the education level and awareness on the subject is something that I believe is an exciting challenge, because it's not one that is difficult, it's one that's in the making, and this is what makes this forum really fun to be in.
Thank you. Tamkeen was formed in 2006, aiming to develop the private sector in line with Bahrain Vision 2030. Tamkeen has its own mentorship program, and we are joined today with one of the founders and the people who have driven the mentorship scheme in Tamkeen. So how does Tamkeen, what does Tamkeen wants, what are the messages Tamkeen wants to deliver to the audience in terms of mentorship? That's the first question.
Good question, honestly. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me today with you on this panel. I'm very pleased to have such an event in Bahrain. Thank you, Zahra, Finmark, for what you've done so far in this space. Let me start by the story of Bahrain. So Bahrain is part of one of the wealthiest regions around the world. But looking deeper into that, Bahrain is honestly, and let's be frank, if we compare it to this part of the world, we're not the wealthiest, except in one thing, and that's you guys in this room. I think what Bahrain is proud of is the human capital that we have on the ground. And as Khalid Ramehi mentioned earlier, a classroom development or learning journey may be useful, but it's not as useful as other techniques. Tamkeen was established to help Bahrainis to become the employee of choice and the leaders of the private sector. Having that said, Tamkeen has done many studies on different programs that were developed around the world. And we do believe that mentorship could be a key tool for individuals to further their understanding in this area. Taking it from there, I'd comment on some of the notes that were given by my colleagues on this panel. I think mentorship should be looked into holistically. So expecting that you should have one mentor specific for all areas of your work may not be the right perception. I may have a mentor whom I'm mentoring myself in other areas. So I'm very glad that we have a panel later on reverse mentoring, because that's part of the entire perception of mentoring. The challenges that we faced in Tamkeen is actually spreading the culture. I totally agree with my colleagues in the previous panel when they talked about how mentoring should not be very structured, although REACH and Tamkeen and other entities are trying to structure programs. But the purpose of these programs is actually just to spread the culture, to spread the knowledge, and that's it. Our role is not actually to handhold mentors and mentees for the entire journey, but actually to kick it off, to create that first flame, to basically just start it off, and then that's it. So when Tamkeen developed its strategy for mentoring, the plan is just to do it, to kick it off, not to stay there until the end of it.
Can organizations benefit from Tamkeen when implementing their own mentoring program?
Of course, the purpose of the program we created is to spread the culture. Any entity in Bahrain that would like to start their own journey, we can meet them, we can share knowledge with them in one hand. At the same time, Tamkeen has schemes that are available to support entities with the needs, such as setting up these programs. I said this yesterday in the TV interview we had for this event today, and I'm saying it again publicly. Tamkeen is here to support you. If you guys have plans to kick off your own programs as organizations, whether for your own employees or for the market entirely, then we're here to support you. That should be understood in the right context. Tamkeen was created to support the private sector, and that's what we're here for. I'm very glad today NBB announced their own program. I'm very glad we have other entities such as Zain, APM Terminal, I hear, JP Morgan, Tatweer, and other entities that has their own programs, and that's all great. But I'll go back to the comment I had earlier. Mentorship is a personal relationship rather than a structured program. The purpose of all of these programs is to kick off the culture, not to necessarily handhold the entire relationship for the rest of it.
Thank you, Ahmed. I have a question in my subconscious, and I'd like to hear Zainab's views on that. So how does an organization know when they need a mentoring program?
I personally think that every organization should have a mentoring program. I know some of the panelists disagree with me, but I do think that it's essential. And back to your point, I think it is about creating a culture. I think incepting a formal program sets the tone from the top, and then it's up to really people who do need that extra mentoring, do need that sponsorship, to form their own informal networks around the business. And I think, it depends on the size of the company and the culture of the company also. But I do think that there's probably not enough networking that goes on. And in the case of women in particular, what we found is that they do find it a little bit more difficult to form these more informal networks, either within their business or outside in the overall industry. So yeah, I guess I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. How would you respond to that, Elham?
Zainab already said I disagree.
We want to hear your disagreement.
Okay. I think there is I try again. It's probably coming from the disagreement thing. They didn't want to hear my views. I believe that mentoring is very specific. Coaching, you can have it across. In each and every organization. Mentoring is meant to be that you prepare people for certain positions, leaders, people who have certain caliber to stay within that. And I'm talking in general, across the line. Organizations come in different shape and size. So in certain shapes and size, management is done in a very rigid way. And by having a mentor system, you only create frustration amongst people and you actually drive them to leave. I'm just saying, each management should really internally look at their objectives and see what they want to do. If they want to create 100 leaders within an organization that have 150, or it's an organization that have thousands and they want to create 2 leaders. I'm just thinking, what's mentoring mean? Mentoring is not meant to be only in offices. You can have mentoring across your life, within your family, within your friends, so you don't need it every time to be so organized. You have to leave a person to choose their own mentoring process. If an organization starts having in-house mentoring system, I believe it's good. I'm not against. I think it's good. But I don't necessarily see it that each and every organization have to have an in-house mentoring.
Thank you. It wasn't a bad disagreement.
Can I come back on that?
Of course.
Yeah. So there's certainly some points that I do agree with, but I do think that if we are talking about future-proofing the workforce, if we're talking about the Industrial Revolution 4.0, where we're not just going to be cogs in a machine, I think they will be replaced by sort of machines. I think you're going to be paid for your knowledge. You're going to be paid for your voice. You're not going to be paid for just doing a specific task. I do think that we need to prepare people for that additional skill set, which I don't think the current education system prepares people for. And so I think that's where mentoring comes in. So it depends on your objective, absolutely. And not everybody's cut out to be a leader. So it depends of, whether you're preparing for succession planning and making sure that you have a new generation of leaders or getting the most out of people's potential. So I think that was my point.
Thank you. Jumana, would you like
Yes.
to shed light on that?
I may take a little longer for this one, so if I
another
may
question
just,
for you,
I
but-
think this is the point that I want to make that's going to set perspective from the REACH perspective, because we've been doing this for 6 years, and I'm hearing since morning a lot of really interesting keywords, but so far I just feel there's a lot of definitions that are flying around the room, and having been the people's element of it, I'm just going to tell it as it is, as a story of how it works, because I think we now know, having mentored 400 pairs of women, we kind of figured out how it works. So when REACH was first established, it was established by 4 of us co-founders who believed in the value of mentoring. So I will skip preaching to the converted, because I think everyone in this room, 250 people this morning, agree that there is a value in mentoring. And why did we decide to do it a structured mentoring program for professional women? It's not because we are going to make computers out of people or use computers to run people. It's because women don't necessarily, especially in an environment like Dubai or a transient or expatriate environment, have access to mentors. It's because I may not have had the courage to go walk up to someone like Rana and say, can you be my mentor? And maybe if I did walk up to her, maybe she was not the right mentor for me. So what we did was to bring the best of the human element and bring the best of the technology element and make them work for people. If I may also, with your permission, Zainab, say that although Zainab's company have their own internal mentoring program, she's also a 2-time REACH mentee. So she has also benefited from the value of external mentoring, and she's seen the system of how it works okay and how it worked better. Because as a mentee, she was able to learn, if I may say, from her own experience. When we first established REACH, everyone thought that as board members, we're all going to be mentors. So I put my hand up and I said, I want to be a mentee. Firstly, because we wanted to see how things work on both sides of the equation. But secondly, because I was at a time in my place and in my career where I was transitioning, and I was having my second child after a 10-year gap. It's not a coincidence I had a 10-year gap between my children, because my career is my middle child. And those 20 years of experience were not very easy, okay? So I was brave enough, and I needed it so badly that I said, I want this, I need this. It's gonna work for REACH, but it's also gonna work for me. And I'm looking at Rana's face on how, the smile of when I'm making a point, but she's actually seen me, now she's seeing me at my best, but she's seen me at my worst. And that's where the program works well in matching you with the right mentor for you, giving you access to the first board member in Deloitte, the first woman to be on the Middle East, on the international board of Deloitte, who I may have never dared approach to say hello. And she's a very friendly person, so it's not her, it's the confidence in us. And to also realize what a fantastic match that was, because once the process works, then the magic happens. Because that's where I also learned what it means to be a mentor. And that's how I learned to become a good mentor, because what a mentor does is hold space. You hold space for someone to be able to reflect their strengths that they can't see, and also to be able to feel safe enough to show their vulnerabilities. Because this is for the personal and professional development of women, by men and women. So it's not men alone, women alone, structured, not structured, algorithm, non-algorithm. It brings it all together in perfect perspective. So 400 pairs of mentees later, it works. And the value of having a structure, also what is the challenges in a mentoring relationship, where you may have lack of commitment by mentees, where you may not be able to measure the progress. So this is why I decided to take a little bit more, so that maybe we could just kind of redefine things in a way that was less mechanical.
That was very informative, and you marketed Reach very well, I think. With 70,000 Bahrainis employed...
Ahmed, can I
Fadlai.
just add one point?
Please.
Do we notice something here? It's ladies want to be mentored, that created Reach, that Zainab referred to. I think in our culture, not only in our culture, it's actually across business globally, women don't have the reach to talk and to have, you know, aspirations, because there are no models in front of the ladies. I didn't mean that you don't need mentoring in life. I just didn't, and I'm not in agreement with the fact that you have a structured mentoring program. You do it when needed, and corporation needs to be open-minded about the fact that there are needs for mentoring and needs to reach for mentors when they are creating certain caliber. That's the point I wanted to raise.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. You've taken 2 questions already. Ahmed, with 70,000 Bahrainis employed in the private sector, the weight on your shoulder must be getting heavier. And I do understand that not every Bahraini in the private sector could be a mentee or a mentor, but what are your strategies when it comes to awareness, when it comes to mapping or matching mentors and mentees from organizations? Do you have partnership? Have you partnered with organizations?
Let me widen a little bit the scope. So it's not just 70,000 actually. We're talking about over 160,000 in the workforce, both private and public sectors. And even entrepreneurs themselves are included, because mentorship is not just about career. It's as well about business mentoring, where we connect businesses as well and entrepreneurs as well. And I have my colleague in the audience, Khalid Al-Alawi, who's handling specifically that business mentoring aspect of what we do. I would say when we talk about changing culture, which is what I think Reach, ourselves, and the rest of the entities are doing in that scope and in that space, it can't be the job of a single entity, not governmental, not a private sector. Without proper public-private partnership, without programs launched by the likes of MBB, I don't think mentoring would ever work and be spread the way we want it to happen. We are very glad to have Reach in Bahrain working. And when they started coming and we were talking about Tamkeen's mentorship program, somebody approached me and asked me, are you competing with Zahra, because Zahra is part of Reach as well in Bahrain? And our answer was completely not, because we are here to support all different initiatives, not necessarily financially, but we're here to work together and spread that culture. That's why Tamkeen is here today. That's why we are part of any specific event that takes place in Bahrain about mentoring. Why we're trying to support these? Because we want to spread that culture again. And I think that it's not on Tamkeen's shoulder only. I think it's the role of everybody. We need to create the right ecosystem for mentorship, just like the one we're creating for startups and for entrepreneurship generally. Because, again, one of the key drivers of success, as studies show, is this. That's bad for me, honestly, because I'm a trainer myself, and we have EMIC on the stage as well. But again, it's a great replacement of the regular traditional training, because the impact of this is a live example on the stage, and I think many amongst the audience, we've heard some of them share their experiences earlier. Let me say this. Mentorship is nothing but somebody who crossed a specific milestone in their life journey, whether that's related to work or personal life, and they're trying to shed light on their own achievements and challenges as well to their colleagues. It doesn't make them better than everybody else. One of the challenges we faced when we started launching our program is that everybody thought they don't need a mentor, but they are mentors themselves. And that's sad. isn't it? I think I'll end later on with a short story, but to shed light on this specifically. But again, it is the fact that all of us in this room, no matter if you're a CEO or a junior employee, you definitely need and probably have a mentor of somehow.
Thank you. We have 2 minutes before we go to the Q&A, so I'll ask a question to all, and I'll give you 30 seconds to answer. So how can success be measured from an in-house or an external mentoring program? We'll start with Elham.
2 seconds.
30 seconds.
I think retention of talented people is a measure of having a good, I would say, organization. And I'm sure part of it is a mentoring process.
Thank you. Jumana?
From our perspective, it's community, because everything that we're talking about, it goes down to the mentors and the mentees.
Yeah.
And without mentors and mentees, there's no reach, there's no nothing. So what we've also worked to create is a community. And when you have that community, you co-create and you make the case for mentoring, as well as for women, as well as for transformation and professional and personal success. So community is what I would vote for.
Thank you. Zainab?
I think it's pretty qualitative, because everybody's sort of goals is pretty specific. So each mentor-mentee pair is very different. So we don't measure it in Invesco per se, but I do think that there are indications that our program has led to several promotions and several sort of advancements and raising the profile of several mentees. So that's sort of how we've measured success so far.
Thanks.
I'd like to echo 2 things Zainab mentioned today. The first one was the fact that mentorship is actually not necessarily linked to hard KPIs, as everybody I think mentioned earlier, but as well, it's that informal relationship that gets created easily in the community. That would be the measure of the success of our program. Today we have over 100, at least 100 people in this room. Unless we have proper networking by the end of today's session, then we have talked about nothing today on all the panels, I think. So you are the measure of success, and what you do today by the end of this forum would be the measure of that.
Thank you. So we are ready to take your questions. I will go with Ronnie, because he raised his hands 10 minutes ago. 3. 3 questions. 4. 2. And then Rana 3, and then 4, and only. We can hear you, Ronnie. Yeah.
I'll be very quick. Thank you so much for this. This is really useful. I think everybody's struggling with this question of mentoring, what it is and what it isn't, structure, not structure. So I wondered if anybody of you could talk a little bit about distinction between mentoring and coaching. So I'm coming to you and I have a big meeting with my CEO. How do I structure that conversation? I'm applying for a job. I need a bit of training. Is that mentoring? Is that coaching? And when does it overlap? And so I just wanted to, because that would be helpful in maybe framing the conversation in terms of structure and non-structure.
Thank you, Ronnie. Would like to answer
If I may take this question, because I'm also a coach. And the distinction between mentoring and coaching is you come, you have a problem, you get a set of tools, and you overcome the problem with actually doing something a certain way. You're giving tools to resolve a problem. With mentoring, it's sharing advice. It's when someone comes to you and all you do is hold space. It's about them in both cases, but all you do is lift a mirror for them to see themselves in a way that they're unable to see themselves, a way where they can access their vulnerability, their strengths, and be able to transform only through the value of having a sounding board and sharing advice. So you're not giving them a specific tool or a task, or you're setting objectives that for them are something that they may transform. In our 3rd month, we actually scrapped the whole set of objectives and created new ones, because what you're doing is witnessing that transformation and holding that space for that person to be able to access their strongest selves. You do that similarly in coaching, but in coaching there is a different exchange. Coaching is paid for. Coaching has specific tools. Coaching has something where you do 1, 2, 3, and then you get to 4.
Thank you,
With
Jumana.
mentoring, the growth and the transformation is a lot more organic.
If I may add, aside of the techniques that the coach or mentor may use, I would say the scope of the topic or issue that the mentee needs or the coachee needs. So if it was very specific, then I'd say that's coaching. I think there are multiple layers of deciding whether the person needs coaching or mentoring. One of them is the scope. The other one is the expertise that he needs. Does he need somebody to do brainstorming with him, as Jumana mentioned, or he needs somebody who's done it before and shed light from his own experience? The time period that he has for that, etc. So there are multiple things that may differentiate, in my opinion. I'm sure Roni himself has an answer for it. Maybe he can share it with us later on.
Thank you. Please.
Hello? Yeah, you can hear me. Thank you, Wild Matar, for allowing me to speak. Do I have to stand up or there's no need?
No need.
Okay, first of all, thank you, panelists. Great job. And I just want to say, I worked in the government for 45 years. I'm just retired. So I can tell you I have interacted with a lot of young people. This is the human face of development. So I want to let my friends behind me, the girls, know that more than 60% of the people who I dealt with were ladies and not men. And they were, if not as bright, even brighter than guys. Sorry, guys who are here in this session. A lot of them in the past, they used to come from University of Bahrain, but recently, the quality of people come from University of Bahrain, the ladies, the young ladies I'm talking about, are super. They are really talented. When somebody was saying behind me, Roni today, this morning, that education, Bahrain is the land of education. Now we are celebrating this year 100 years of education. I have worked with the QAA, Quality Assurance Authority, to improve the level of education. We're trying to match education at home and at school with the labor force, labor arena. I think Bahrain is progressing so fast, and therefore we need people to know that in Bahrain we're doing very well in this regard. So really, many people don't know about Bahrain, but I want to let them know. Anyway, my father was the Minister of Education and Head of Education for 50 years, so I was living with him all those period.
I think we are all the fine product of Bahrain.
Bahrainis are talented, and I want to tell you that the people who worked with me at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from 95 onwards, these young girls, I want to tell you that they are so bright that I can't compete with them. Actually, a mentor, if we're talking about mentors should be leaders. This has not been mentioned today, that leadership is an important part of mentoring. And a leader should have trust in all the people working under him. And he should find the strength on every single employee working under him. And everybody has a strength. I cannot believe that some are dumb and some are clever. This is not true. But you have to give them the chance, and you have to give them the trust, and you have to be democratic. Unless we are democratic in our approach as management, this is leadership. Otherwise, they will have no chance to feel that they have confidence in themselves to excel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Rana. We'll take your question, Rana.
Shukran. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the story of Jumana, and really, it was a privilege to be a mentor of Jumana so many years ago. But what she missed saying is that I benefited a lot from the relationship and from the year, because it was structured mentoring. Year we spent together, although we continued our relationship later on, because of reverse mentoring. I got so many insights from the meetings we've had, from the calls, from all sorts of interactions with her. So there is a lot of benefit to the mentor. I'd like to share the Deloitte experience in mentoring to demystify a little bit some of the discussions that are happening today. So I was invited by the co-founders to be on the advisory board of REACH in around 2013 or around that period of time. You would think for Deloitte, a 300,000 people organization, we have enough programs in our organization that I wouldn't learn that much from Reach, but that's wrong. After I looked at what they were doing, and I'm not marketing Reach, by the way, there's no money, there's no anything that goes there. What happened?
That's my role as a moderator too.
What happened is I found the program fills a gap for us in the Middle East. If you do not have a business need to have a mentoring program, don't go through it. And I'm talking a program. I'm not talking about the experiences were discussed on the previous panel today, where somebody went and gave feedback on a proposal. That is part and parcel of us being managers. We use mentoring techniques, coaching techniques, performance management techniques to give feedback. That's not a mentoring structured program. It is a totally different thing. So if you are a coach, a counselor, a mentor, everything, you use a lot of similar skills, but that doesn't make what you're doing to be structured mentoring. What I did is I actually stole the program. I went and talked to the American company which gave you the software, and they know, and I hired them for Deloitte. And what does the software do? You have potential mentees, they go and fill a questionnaire. We mentors fill a questionnaire. Automatically the system says, she's the right mentee for me, I'm the right mentor for him. And we get this, and then we apply sanity checks. We started the program the first year with 30 people only. And we asked our business units to nominate these 30 people, the mentees. We did not allow them to choose the mentors. We made the decision centrally because I know my partners. I chose the ones who have good potential to be mentors. We didn't want to risk the first year. So we got 29 men. So I went back, because we told them we only want the top people who have potential to make partner or are already partners, first-level partners, because all our mentors were board, exco, and senior partners in the firm. The need was to expose a senior manager, director, sitting in Beirut, sitting in Dubai, to somebody who is a CEO or a business unit leader sitting in Khobar, sitting in Riyadh, sitting in Bahrain. We wanted to do it across. That's a business need, so you need to determine if you have that business need. So we went back and said, quota, 20% women. We're not going to accept all men. And so we applied this quota first year. Then we had to remove it because it became natural. What the process did, if you'll allow me a minute, we matched them on the system. Then we told them you have 1 year, 12 sessions or more. Every session, the system itself goes and says, did you meet? The first 3 or 2 meetings, you have to put on the system the goals of the mentee. That's the structure. You don't go into what they do, but you make sure at the center that they are ticking these boxes, because people are very busy and people may not do these things, and we were watching mentors and mentee. So we were following that, and then we got assessment from mentees, assessment for mentors at the end, if the program was successful for them, and we had criteria. And Ahmed, as we spoke last night, we were able to measure from the perspective of mentees and mentors if it was successful. Second cohort, second year, third cohort, third year. All the rest was happening in the organization, but we have now batches of mentees who got exposure and who were promoted later on much easier because people knew about them. Sorry for the length of this,
the
but
last
just one.
question.
Can I just point to one very quick. Sorry.
Zainab,
one
you have
very
10
quick
seconds,
point.
and then Ahmed 10 seconds.
Sure. That Rana mentioned, slightly unrelated to what you mentioned, but at the beginning, I think there is real value to being a mentor, and I don't know if we mentioned this so far, and we haven't really explored it, but I urge everyone to be a mentor, because I think you may think that it's a sort of a suck on your time, but it really is, the benefits do outweigh the time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Just wanted to mention.
Ahmed, if we can have a few remarks.
So I promised earlier a story. I'll try to be short in this story. So I'll try my best. So I have a friend, I've said this story like a million times before. So I have this friend who has an issue at home. He came to us and he told us that when he speaks to his wife, she can't hear him properly. Can anybody help us with that? So one of our friends who's an ENT doctor, he said, I may be able to help you if you try one thing. If you come back to me and tell me that the furthest distance between you and your wife, where she can hear you actually. He said, how can I do that? So our friend told him, go home, speak to her from 25 feet away. If she hears you, come and tell me. If she doesn't, then try to go closer 5 feet, if I may move for this. So he went home, and she was cooking. So he started by asking him, Flan, what do we have for lunch today? 25 feet away, he hears no answer. What did he do? 5 feet closer. So he's, help me, 20 feet away from her. Flan, what do you have for lunch today? No answer. What did he do? 5 feet closer, so he's 15 feet away. I'll cut it short. So he was 5 feet away from her, asking her, what do we have for lunch today? And she answers, this is the 4th time I tell you we have majboos for lunch. So the problem sometimes is actually not in the system. It's not necessarily an HR training that you may need. It's a relationship that you create either through a structured program, as was mentioned earlier by Tamkeen or by other entities, or it's a relationship, it's an initiative that you take today. Again, Bahrainis are exposed to many events, but the use of those events are not just on the stage, but they are mostly off the stage. So that's something you need to try to do. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you all for your attention and contribution to our session. I'd like to thank Elham, Jumana, Zainab, and Ahmed I'd like to extend my gratitude to the National Bank of Bahrain, Labour Fund Tamkeen, and Finmark, and everybody who contributed to the success of this forum. Thank you.